Welcome to a brand new month and a very special month of Jasiri. It's the first Monday of March, and that means we're stepping into Women's Month, a time to celebrate the strength, resilience, and achievements of women everywhere. From the boardrooms to the marketplaces, from the classrooms to the front lines of activism, women continue to break barriers, challenge norms, and inspire change. But even as we celebrate, we must also confront the realities, the gender pay gap, period poverty, limited access to education, and the daily struggles women face in balancing ambition with societal expectations. Throughout this month, Jasiri will be shining a spotlight on these issues, amplifying women's voices and pushing for the real change we want to see. So please expect powerful conversations, inspiring stories, and bold calls for action. And one part of today's main conversation will also highlight the gendered aspect of inflation. I thought you probably never thought about that, but yeah, there is a gendered aspect to inflation. But before that, yes, before that, let's update you on the rumble in the Senate, which has now entered the streets. A lot happened over the weekend, especially in the controversy surrounding Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan's allegations against Senate President Godswill Akpabio. Now, as we shared on Friday during Hot Topics, Akpoti accused Akpabio of making sexual advances to her while she and her husband were visiting his home in Ekaette. Now, she's not the first one publicly accusing Akpabio of such. When he was serving as the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, the former acting managing director of the Niger Delta Development Commission, the NDDC, Joy Nunieh, claimed he sexually harassed her as well. She also claimed that she slapped him in his guest house in Apple, that he promised to make her the substantive managing director of the parastatal. She claimed as well that his meetings with her were either at Apple or Meridian. Now, the Senate President's wife, Ekaette, Akpabio, in response to Senator Akpoti's lawsuit, held a press briefing in Abuja dismissing these accusations against her husband, asserting that their families had enjoyed a long-standing cordial relationship even before Akpoti-Uduaghan's marriage, and suggested that her claims were baseless. After that, she filed 2 defamation lawsuits against Senator Akpoti in the Federal High Court, Abuja. Now, the suits seek the total of 251 billion naira in damages, alleging harm to her husband's reputation. The first suit, she seeks 250 billion naira for emotional distress, while the other suit demands an apology in major newspapers and 1 billion naira.
So in response to her lawsuit on the same day, Akpoti, in a letter through her lawyer, addressed and urged Mr. Akpabio to stay out of the matter, emphasizing that the allegations were personal to Godswill Akpabio and should be addressed by him directly. While this was happening, we also heard from 2 female senators on the matter. First, Senator Ireti Kingibe, in an interview, said she was unaware of Senator Akpoti's sexual harassment claims, but if she can prove them, then that would be fine. Senator Biodun Olujimi said Akpabio jokes a lot. He's fond of making little fun out of everything. He loves to make everything light, and that makes him vulnerable. That's in quote. She also said that Senator Akpoti should drop the 100.3 billion naira lawsuits because, in quote, we don't want women to look like they're emotionally unstable. End of quote.
On Sunday, Senator Akpoti's husband released a statement. Chief Emmanuel Uduaghan explained why he initially chose to remain silent, saying that the escalating nature of the situation compelled him to speak out. In his statement, he affirmed his deep bond with his wife, describing her as a devoted partner who has always remained truthful, even in adversity. In addressing speculation about his involvement in resolving the dispute, Uduaghan disclosed that he had personally met with Akpabio, urging him to accord his wife the respect she deserves, not just as a senator, but also as his wife. According to him, both he and Akpabio had reached an understanding to amicably resolve the matter. However, despite this agreement, his wife continued to express concerns about what she perceived as persistent harassment from the Senate president. Reaffirming his commitment to his wife and their marriage, Uduaghan emphasized that he has unwavering faith in her loyalty and integrity, describing their relationship as one built on love, compassion, and mutual respect, stating that he, I quote, would never trade her for anything, as she is my greatest joy, as she is the greatest joy of my life, end quote. He further made a public appeal to the Nigerian Senate and the Senate President, urging them to treat her with the dignity and respect she deserves while allowing the courts and relevant authorities to determine the underlying legal matters.
All right. Now, this was a mouthful.
But we have to give all the details.
Yeah.
Yes.
What a way to start Monday. It's a lot. When I first saw the video of the women protesting is it in Ekaette, or Abuja, I just shook my head, first of all. Like, you are in quotes, you are buying matter will not concern you. But someone would say, Akpabio would have affected the lives of these people positively. That's why they're coming out to show their solidarity, and there is nothing wrong with that. So for me. On the other hand, I think Senator Natasha Akpoti she's well within her rights to take the matter as far as she wants to take it, because she feels it's troubling to her. And she's in this struggle, and it seems like she's being witch hunted. She has every right to push it as far as she wants to. And for me, I'm happy that her husband is even supporting her in this. Someone said, we're having a conversation on the floor of the studio, and someone said, oh, she should have, let's see, we're here. She said, oh, she should have told her husband from the get-go when they started. And I said, in her situation, she would have to be delicate about it, because it's her work at the same time, they're family, friends, and you have to find the most intelligent way to handle these issues. But when, as they say in street parlance, water pass garage, she now realize that this is not just a passing fancy, it is something that's going,
on Friday, I spoke about microaggressions, and I think a lot of women, particularly in the corporate space and even the political and governance space, can understand that. There are microaggressions you face, these minor comments, these jokes that are made. Senator Natasha spoke to that, Akpabio jokes a lot, he likes to make things lighthearted and so on. And I'm thinking to myself, she has probably heard an inappropriate joke or two. Akpabio jokes a lot. He's fond of making little fun out of everything. He loves to make everything light, and that makes him very vulnerable. Senator Natasha should please take the case out of court. We don't want women to look like they are emotionally unstable. But if her allegations are true, then what you have is if her allegations are true, what you have is a petty man who's using his position to get back at her for saying no, if her allegations are true. And when she broke down what happened, what she said supposedly happened at his home, at his, what do you call it, country home or whatever, and I think Ekaette, and then her husband has come out to support her. I'm so very happy that the husband has spoken, because you often don't see that. It's funny to me, because I also feel like the Senate President's wife should not have spoken, but I'm happy that her husband has spoken. And the thing is, I can't have it both ways. But I think you guys understand why.
Yes,
I do. Clearly.
I mean, she's well within her rights to speak, but after the case has been cleared.
She said, why didn't Natasha Akpoti come to her?
Who is she again in the scheme of things?
They're family friends. Even the husband acknowledged that they're family friends.
Yeah, but she knows it's a delicate situation.
Exactly.
I'm sure she understands. And this is now beyond, she's not addressing it as though they are family friends. She's taking it to court.
Yes.
So
she's also on behalf of her husband.
Exactly. And I do not even think that I'm not talking legal now, but you have no right to sue until the case has been clarified. If they see that, okay, she lied against your husband, then you can sue for defamation. But this is a case that is still ongoing and should be looked into. Olive said something in the makeup studio that, sexual harassment cases are the hardest
They're
to
very difficult.
And thankfully, the husband has come out to support her. So if that is...
But Natasha Akpoti says she has evidence.
Exactly. So they should let it play out.
And you never know. This is something probably that's been building over the years, and she's just been keeping evidence, knowing that, because she's a lawyer, knowing that sexual harassment cases are difficult to prove.
Very difficult.
So maybe she had just been biding her time. Someone who is badly behaved, guys, we know a man who is badly behaved is badly behaved. We have a default setting, we have a default societal setting that pardons, oh, leave him, he jokes a lot, leave him, he plays too much, leave him, he's just like that. He's just like that.
Do you know what I heard on radio this morning when I was coming in? This was part of the conversation one of the radio stations were having, and a caller called in and said, what's wrong with Senator Akpoti? That is it wrong for a man to toast her? That did he do anything wrong in telling her that he liked her? All she had to say was no. So and unfortunately, I'm so happy that other people called after that and raked the guy down. But you have a situation in a society such as ours that tells you that, oh, it's fine for a married man to toast another woman who is married, that all she had to do is say no without recognizing the power dynamics at play. she's spoken about a number of times in which she felt that her motions has been pushed aside. She spoke about one motion that she kept trying to raise after how many times. And it's interesting now that we're hearing from the Senate, and the Senate has ruled out investigating the allegations against Senate President Godswill Akpabio due to the absence of a formal petition. So they're not saying they won't investigate, but they're saying that if she doesn't raise a formal petition, that is what the Senate can act on. And I'm thinking back to when they now referred her matter and her actions, that this is 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks Thursday, I think, that this whole conversation started, when it was a situation of seats adjustments and moving seats and being able to speak from what seats and whatnot, and how quickly it moved to the Senate Ethics Committee for investigation. You don't always wait for petition. Because the Senate should correct me. Did they wait for petition on every single thing they've ever investigated?
Exactly.
This is an accusation at the highest level to the third person in this country. It should not be brushed aside. It should not be handled lightly, given the nature of things in this country. And I was quite disappointed in the senators that spoke. I'd like us to look at what Senator Ireti Kingigbe said as well. She had comments, and she said that guys, remember, there are only how many? There are only 3 female senators. This is down from, I believe, either 7 or 9 female senators in the last assembly. We only have 3 female senators. She said the 3 of us, female senators, were not sexually harassed. That is not to say that if Senator Natasha can prove what she has, that is fine. We will support her, but she has never discussed it with us. We do not know about it. First of all, your comments are contradictory. You cannot say that you were not harassed, but then she didn't tell you, and if you didn't know about it. Speak for yourself.
I don't want to.
And it's an issue in which not just women, it often happens, but particularly women, because somebody misbehaves with you, but doesn't misbehave with another person. We need to realize that we experience people differently. And we experience people in power differently as well. From woman to woman, from man to man, from person who works to them, PA, SA to the next one. We experience people in power differently.
It's something for me, this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's
very much.
So much yet to unravel, so much. And I know that Nigerians are waiting with bated breath so they can see how this is going to play out. But one thing you have to give Natasha credit for is her confidence and her doggedness, and saying that this has to stop. And I'm hoping that people who, if she can prove within, every reasonable doubt that this is what's going on, that finally we can bag this cat and bag this cat properly.
Will the wife now come out and say the husband is lying, that Natasha Akpoti's husband is lying, that he did not speak to her husband?
Exactly. Madam,
when was the last time you saw the Senate President's wife? But they knew when to bring her out.
That was the first time I actually saw her.
I've seen her before, but they knew to bring her out. Let's take this comment before we go. She has said that there's no way that a man as disciplined as my husband, as that, can think of taking a woman to his home. My husband is a very responsible man and disciplined. He has a lot of respect for me and my children. We look forward to how this will play out.
Ekaette, let's not go there.
Before you start speaking, Catherine will change languages for us right now.
No, don't let us go there. Ekaette, no. Good, I'm going on telephone. For maybe I'm get them for you. And hear something and say the maybe anyway. You're watching Just See. We'll take a break now, but when we come back, we shift gears to focus on Nigeria's inflation crisis and the cost of everything. Let's look at how rising food prices, transport costs, and economic policy are affecting the everyday Nigerian. After the break, Cheta Nwanze, partner at SBM Intelligence, joins us to break it all down. Don't go anywhere. This is a conversation you don't want to miss. We'll be right back.
Many thanks for staying with us. Now, very quickly, we're moving away from the Akpoti-Akpabio drama. Nigeria's inflation crisis reached alarming levels in 2024, hitting a 30-year high of 33.2% last year. Now, food prices, transportation costs, and even hygiene products like sanitary pads have skyrocketed, pushing millions more Nigerians into poverty. Now, while telecom companies have tried to maintain price stability, a recent 50% tariff hike is set to affect consumers. Interestingly, while the country ended the year with inflation at 34.80% for December 2024 last week, the National Bureau of Statistics revealed that headline inflation dropped to 24.48% for January 2025, following the rebasing of the Consumer Price Index. Now, that's a staggering 10% drop in 1 month. With transport prices and food prices still high, many Nigerians are being squeezed tighter than ever. Entertainment services have also seen a steep price jump, forcing people to reconsider their spending habits. Today, we'll be unpacking the findings from SBM Intelligence Prize for Everything report and discuss the real impact of inflation on Nigerian households, businesses, and the economy. More importantly, we'll explore what solutions could help ease the financial burden on Nigerians. Joining us now is Cheta Nwaze, the lead partner at SBM Intelligence. Cheta, welcome back to Jasiri.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Cheta. All right, so let's start with the most recent news, and that is, of course, what some have said, myself included, the surprising about 10% drop in Nigeria's inflation rate from 34.80% in December to 24.48% in January. That's just a month-on-month drop. Now, the MBS says that this is due to the CPI rebasing, that's the Consumer Price Index, and the rebasing exercise that was carried out. Now, for all of us who feel like our pockets have not gotten heavier, Cheta, please explain. How did the CPI rebasing cause this? And is this a real drop or what? Is it also something we could expect to see as a trend or at least maintained? Now, what, the smile already, the smile already is a problem.
Okay, so, no, I think people need to understand what just happened is a statistical exercise.
Wow.
Yeah, so basically they changed the base year, I think from 2009 to 2019. So what that simply means is if you have, base year is where they start counting from. So relative to 2009, inflation was 34% before. Whether it really feels like 34% is another discussion entirely. But now relative to 2019, inflation is 24%. So it's just relative. But I think something people need to understand is this. Inflation, CPI, is not a measure of whether things are getting cheaper. Because when you talk with so many people in this country about, that inflation is slowing down and all of that, people in their heads, you can see clearly that people expect that prices will start dropping. No,
yes.
That's deflation. No. Inflation is just measuring the rate of price rise. That's what inflation measures. The rate at which things are increasing.
So things are slowing down in the rate in which they increase in price.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. So
news.
again, 24% is relative to. You look so disappointed.
I thought I was hiding it better.
Really?
It's in the eyes. Yeah.
Honestly, I was trying to hide it, but...
Yeah. So basically, so inflation is not, it's only probably 2 countries in the world right now that are experiencing what we call deflation. Which is prices actually going back.
What are the countries? Let me know.
Japan and Germany. No, Germany is now in inflation.
Okay.
There was a time that Germany was experiencing deflation. In economic terms, deflation is not good, actually, because deflation means that companies will not get profits. You understand? So companies don't like that. Businesses don't like deflation. But the thing is, for example, Germany, if inflation gets to 4%, they have a cabinet meeting. Because Germany has a history where inflation led to social unrest, which led to Hitler.
Yes, very true.
So they have that particular...
It's a ring the alarm kind of situation.
Yeah, so they know that inflation is something that is very... So take Turkey, for example. Erdogan has been battling inflation for a long time.
Yes.
One of the things in Argentina that led to this absolute insane human being being in power, Javier Milei, is sky-high inflation. When you have sky-high inflation in a country, then ultimately it opens the door for demagogues to come to power. Under the Weimar Republic in Germany, inflation at a point got to 10,000%. So that was, so when people like Hitler came and started saying, we'll change this, everybody voted for him. So that's the long-term effect. So there's also a potential political effect of untamed inflation.
Yeah.
So, but inflation will always be there. The prices of things cannot be the same from year to year. The issue is the rates.
And of course, if whether or not salaries and wages are also keeping up with inflationary trends.
So one of the things, so for example, in the UK right now, or in short, not just in the UK, in many Western countries, one of the discussions that they're having, one of the complaints that they keep having is the fact that wages are not keeping up with inflation.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, so I know when we have conversations like this, many of us are focused on how much we are paying for food, because that's what's important.
It's not just that. In Nigeria, so that's one of the signs of an underdeveloped economy. Food is a hefty component of inflation. In a developed economy, typically the biggest component of inflation in a very developed economy is energy. So
I mean, imagine last year the World Food Programme said Nigerians spent 65% of their money on food alone. Now, that's hefty. And SBM's report shows that food inflation is squeezing Nigerians the hardest, with the cost of essentials rising sharply. So we're talking of things continually on the rise.
It's not squeezing you.
See, okay, what is the reason behind this squeezing? This squeeze. That has been the common denominator since last year.
Yeah.
When we started talking about
Since before last year.
But surprisingly enough, people are saying food prices are coming down. I know that the president was saying thank you to some people. He's smiling again. The president was saying thank you to some people last week as prices were coming down right before Ramadan. So Cheta, stop. Cheta, let's behave here. So if we're saying that Nigerians are spending about 65, because I don't even think it's 65. Some people put upwards, some people put it upwards of 80 to 90% of their salaries on food.
We had a study in 2021 that indicated it's in the 90% range.
In the 90% range.
Yeah. And and that was building up from the study we did in 2018, that as of that time it was 63%. So it had gone up. Bottom line is, as food prices go up, people's wages remain stagnant, and people's wages are stagnant. They will spend more on food. Because food is the one thing that people can't do without. People can, so...
What about rent? Because the conversation about rent also is increasing now.
In both studies that we did, we found, please don't remind me, they just doubled my rent.
I should get chase too.
From here I'm going to have negotiation with my landlord. So I have my gun ready as a Mexican standoff. So basically, the food is the one thing that people can't do without. Yeah. What we found in both our studies, 2018 and 2021, was that most people in Nigeria don't put rent as something that they save up to.
Yes, yeah.
What they do is that they dedicate a special project to raise rents by the end of the year, whenever their rent is due. So what we found was that the first thing that people spend on is on food. And then the second thing that people spend a lot of money on, guess what it is? No. Transportation was number 4.
School fees.
Data. Telecoms, yes. Because people need to beg for help.
Exactly.
Urgent to pay. Wow. People basically set aside money first for food, second for data. And it's not even for
calls.
For calls. It's for WhatsApp.
What's up?
So I feel
so that they can ask what's up. Urgent to pay.
Yeah. So I actually feel for companies such as MTN, because they've been really, really, really fighting against it. It's been Nigeria is, to put it bluntly, Nigeria has been a very harsh operating environment for them. Mm-hmm. So when we are talking of these price increases that people are reeling against, you have to ask, what will they do? Because at the end of the day, first things first, what does a company exist for? A company exists to make profits. And I think Nigerians, we've been socialized for a very long time to believe that companies are basically public goods. They're not. They exist to make profits. So if you can't pay for the services, move up.
Nigerians don't like to hear that. They think that we have to find a way to make these companies sort of kowtow to what we want. But let's move on. Let's keep the conversation going now.
So I think, we know that most of our problems are self-made, right? But how much of these challenges and this inflation is attributed to some of our domestic challenges, like insecurity, like climate change, and how much of it is tied to global factor? And is it true? I don't think you really answered whether or not prices are genuinely going down, and if the president is to thank for it.
So, I'm always very wary of thanking politicians for those kind of stuff, because some people will do certain things as a favor, and then when the conditions that necessitated those favors disappear, those price. So think for example, when in October last year, the price of the naira relative to the dollar or the pound suddenly went down, and everybody was saying, "Yay, what they're doing is working." And then suddenly, after November, everything went back to default setting. So, structurally, we have a problem. I'll refer you back to a 2017 report that we did, talking about the fact that a lot of people in Nigerian farms, in the north central, in middle belt, we're no longer going to the farms. And this is something that you should know. You are from Kogi now, so you know that a lot of things have been happening there.
Hey, you keep getting Kogi. You and this your Kogi shade.
No, Kogi is, if we can do it, we can do a full day show. It's a really tragic state. So basically, we're not producing as much as we should in terms of agriculture. Because of insecurity. So our insecurity problems have come home to roost. But secondly, to add to that, you now have our infrastructure problems. So it is unacceptable that somebody will produce a basket of tomatoes in Bauchi, and then to ship it down to the market where in Lagos, half of those tomatoes will be rotten by the time they get here. We actually need to do something. There's a reason why whenever we have a festival, and we are going to see it in 30 days' time. Ramadan will end in 30 days.
Yes, it will end.
And then we'll see it roughly roughly 10 days later during Easter. So that period is going to be rough. That's from the period from 30 days' time. So within the next 30 to 42 days thereabouts, we are going to have a rough period of price rises, simply because people will be demanding more for the holiday, and we don't have the ability to get things to the right place at the right time where they are needed.
To meet the demand.
So we have a logistical challenge. We haven't fixed that.
So we'll pick that up with transport, because transport fare is a large part of what also drives the cost of food. We'll pick up this conversation on the cost of everything here in Nigeria as the inflation conversation continues. Stay with us. Now we're continuing the conversation on Nigeria's inflation crisis and how it impacts everything. Talking a bit about food, we got into a bit of the data conversation, but let's look at transport, which also impacts so much here in the country. Now, the Cost of Everything report says that transport fares have more than doubled, contributing to an 82% rise in staple food prices like rice. And that speaks back to what Cheta was saying before the break in terms of logistics. One of the biggest things driving that transport cost has been the high cost of petrol. But last week, we saw another drop in the cost of fuel coming out of the Dangote refinery, which led to a reduction in the pump price of fuel for the stations that are supplied by Dangote. Now, is this one of the things helping to bring down the cost of food, Cheta? And what can be done to cushion Nigerians from the rippling costs and the effects of rising transport costs? Because if we're saying that even logistics, when you're talking about bringing food to the market or moving it around the country, we don't even want to talk about how much farmers lose in harvest. Just not even having storage facilities across the country, having to do with bad roads, having to do with multiple layers of taxation from state to state to state to get to markets around Lagos, to get to markets in different places. How would the food not be that much more expensive? But when we bring it all together, especially with the fuel situation and the dynamics of those who are buying their petrol or their PMS from Dangote, how does it all work out or work for or against Nigerians?
So I think the fuel thing is a bit of a red herring. What we are seeing in terms of our petroleum cost in Nigeria, in terms of our energy cost, is a correction. For too long, we've been sucking on cheap petrol for a long time, and we didn't know how to use it. I think it's better for us, and this is painful to say, because we're all going through it. But anyways, I'm being a bit selfish here. I don't use my generator anymore. I use an inverter. And I have solar panels on my roof, so the generator is... do you want to buy?
Before she looks disappointed again.
In terms of petrol costs, we're experiencing a correction. We need to know the real cost of energy as a people. So that one is this. And in terms
even the real cost of consumption, we still have not found that yet.
We haven't found the real cost for so much. See, in the 70s and 80s, we built this fake welfare economy that was essentially subsidizing the upper middle class and the upper class, not the majority of Nigerians. But as more people aspire to get into those classes, that fake economy could no longer sustain, especially given the fact that we as a people have not built a country that is productive. So one of our big problems is that we don't sell anything to the world, really. We really don't sell anything to the world that can ensure that we keep a steady economy. We're not getting in the dollars. We need to change that paradigm, and we need to change it very fast. But having said that, I think that the bigger worry in terms of food getting to places like Lagos it's not necessarily the cost of petrol for transports. After all, diesel has been deregulated for a very long time.
Yeah.
And most of those trucks that bring the food from the hinterlands run on diesel. The real issue is the infrastructure. So, for example, you that goes to Ogbomosho on a regular basis, what's the condition of the road between Ibadan and Ogbomosho?
That's why I don't go as much as I should. They say I've not finished the expressway.
So you find that a lot of trucks that are going, because that stretch is the A1. So you're talking of trucks that are going from Lagos all the way to Sokoto, get stuck between Ogbomosho. Once you pass Oyo, all the way to Ogbomosho, the road is terrible, and then it's only good after Ogbomosho to Ilorin.
Yes.
And then after Ilorin, once you get to Jeba, there's no road again. Until, so trucks that are going along that, a journey that, if everything was okay, should take maybe 17 hours, can easily take 4 days.
Yes.
And then these trucks are not refrigerated. No. So tomatoes that's inside that truck, it goes spoil. Because our weather is hot.
Yeah.
So you have those realities that we haven't taken care of. We have a massive infrastructure deficit in the country. We need to sort it out, because that will help improve logistics. It will help improve our supply chains, which will help improve the price. Secondly, storage. We don't have enough storage facilities. If you say you want to, if for example Nigeria enters a war situation tomorrow, do you know how much our food storage facilities can last? 4 days tops. 4. Ufu, Ibwa, Ino, Ito. That's it. And then that's it. We're done. So how can you be running a country of 200 million people if we really are 200 million? Because that's another problem. We can't count. If we're already 200 million, how can you be running a country of 200 million people and you only have food storage for 4 days?
No, we usually have this belief that it's not my portion. It won't be my portion. It won't be our portion.
I better pass my neighbor.
Yes, so
it's a deeply ingrained mentality here. I better pass my neighbor. So
that somehow whatever the portion or the cup of all this misery or whatnot will somehow miraculously pass us over. Kevin, let's keep going. Wow.
All right, so let's take a look at, the cost of everything report, but before that, the World Bank report, let's come back to it. In October last year, 129 million Nigerians were classified as poor. That's last year. Now, that's up from 115 million the year before, that's 2023. So that means 14 million more Nigerians became poorer last year. The Washington-based bank attributed this surge to inflation, poor economic management, and external shocks. I like that term, external shocks, because there's so much. It's an umbrella term. But there is a gendered aspect to this conversation around inflation and poverty. Tolu said that when we laid the foundation for you coming on the show. Women and girls face unique economic challenges. So when crises like inflation hit, they are the first to feel the impact, forced to stretch already thin resources, sacrifice their education, take on informal, low-paying jobs to survive. So it's the rising cost of these essentials only worsen this divide. They make basic needs unaffordable for millions and millions of women. What do you have to say about it? Listen, I know that it looks so bleak because from the moment we started this conversation, there has been knocks and knocks and knocks. How do we come out of this quagmire? Because, okay, let me not say again.
Let me
answer her question. How do we come out of
No, wait, keep that question to the end.
It's a very important question. Vote for me, I'm running for president.
Oh God, Jetta, see me, my ears are...
Can we be serious?
How could you do that?
Can we be serious? But before you add, because she talked about the gendered aspect, and I want us to add that, the price of sanitary pads has risen by 144% in a year, making them nearly unaffordable for many women and girls. Now, this has also increased period poverty in the country, putting extra pressure on women and girls. Some are missing school, and some are even missing work because of this. And then that ends up perpetuating another cycle of poverty, making it more difficult for them to rise above their socioeconomic class.
Essentially, we've returned to the days of our ancestors where the moment a woman is on her period, they will put her in a room to finish the
Until
thing
she's done.
until she's
So
done.
when you think about it, we all say inflation, we talk about rising fuel prices, we talk about cost of food, but we don't
And
look at
external-
somehow how it's gendered and how it impacts women.
Yeah.
So in terms of this, I want to ask, should we be looking at tax exemptions, subsidy programs? Do we even have an economy that can support any of that? Because it is
Do we
important.
even have an economy that can enforce? I think
But
that's
it's important for us to have to make sure women go to school, girls go to school, and women are part of the economy. Otherwise, the economy still also won't grow.
Before we even talk of girls going to school, we are sitting in a country where at least 2 states have stopped children from going to school during Ramadan.
I was going to say
It was
something.
I'm so sorry.
You understand?
I saw it
We
on
have-
Friday.
We have
Bauchi
2
is
states,
one.
yeah,
For
Bauchi and
1
Katsina.
month, 5
And
weeks.
look at the numbers of children
that are already
are
out of school in those states.
We have a problem of focus in this country. This is before we talk of the gender issues, because the gender issues are a subset of the problem. The big problem to start with is the fact that we don't even know where we are. We don't know what we are. We don't know who we are. We don't know what we want to be. That's the most fundamental problem. Every other thing builds on that. So, these are the kind of things that they should be discussing in the National Assembly now, because these are major issues.
Absolutely.
But considering the scandal that is happening at the moment, which people are trying to brush under the carpet, I don't have any
Hope or belief
that they would that this is even occurring to them. Because look at even the attitude. Now, what are the impacts of, for example, this gender-based poverty? It is women who are coming out to protest against Senator Akpoti
Against another woman.
because they are too poor. Because let's get it, this is not a commentary on whether the Senate President is guilty or not. That is an allegation that remains to be proven. But the fact that you already have women coming out to protest in his support tells you a lot about the poverty those women are going through.
Yeah.
Because the truth of the matter is, and this one is not an allegation, those protesters are paid. It is a matter of money that is being shared around.
Yeah.
So we have a problem, and when you have a race to the bottom, which is what Nigeria essentially is on every aspect, it's a race to the bottom. It is the weakest that will always be trampled upon. And historically, women and children have always been the weakest. So for example, look at Gaza, Israel, Palestine. Who are the people that are suffering the most? Not Hamas, but the women and children of Gaza. So it's just, so the fact of the matter, the painful fact is that Nigeria is still very much a Hobbesian state. And because it is still very much a Hobbesian state, it is that law of the jungle
that rules.
If we go to the savannah, because lions are not in the jungle, the male lion is just there in the corner. It is the women, the lionesses, that go out to hunt. And then they come and present him the food, Oga take.
And give him first
That
choice.
is the law of the jungle. And the brutal reality is that we still live in a jungle. So it is women and children that will suffer. The key thing we should be asking is, how do we come out from the jungle into civilization?
So hold that, because
And when you
it's
vote for me, then we can have that.
it's part of the questions we're going to ask last. But just to give Cheta and all of us some updates, it's actually now 3 states that are closing schools for Ramadan: Bauchi, Kebbi, and Kano. And there are reports that Sokoto may soon join. Let's go on a quick timeout. When we come back, the conversation continues.
Many thanks for staying with us. Very laughable, but at the same time, sad times that we are in. We're still having an extensive conversation with Cheta, and I just want us to go straight into it. Now, Cheta, I know you have a lot to get off your chest with this next question, right? Talking about the 50% telecoms tariff increase. For many years, data and call prices were kept stable despite rising inflationary pressures. And with this 50% tariff hike, in the midst of all that Nigerians are facing, what impact do you think that this will have on businesses, on students, and on everyday consumers?
It's going to have a devastating impact. Let's not sugarcoat it. But I think it's very important to point out that the telecoms companies provide an essential service, but they are first and foremost businesses. They need to survive. They have to survive in order to be able to provide those services. And we must consider something. Most of their inputs are actually priced in USD. So as the naira is falling down, I mean, let's put it like this. If you raised, if as a company you raised say $5 million in say 2021, you raised it, all your projections when you raised that $5 million was based on an exchange rate at the time of about 600 naira to the dollar. That was what your projections were on. You raised $5 million for a 10-year period. Now, we are not even up to half of that time, and the exchange rate is retaining at around 1,500. That is more than double, more than 100% less than what you projected on. So it means that all your projections have gone out the window. The only way for you to even begin to make some sense to your investors is to raise prices. That is a fundamental thing. This also goes to cable TV. So one of the things that, and is a pet peeve of mine, the English Premier League. Nigerians enjoy watching it. Yesterday I went to see a friend in Ekaette. A lot of businesses were closed. They were playing FA Cup, but
Yes.
all the betting shops were open. Every single one, all the way from Ekaette to Ekaette. Every single betting shop that I passed was open and full. Nigerians enjoy watching this thing.
Yeah.
But do you know how much the cable company pays
For the license.
for the license? And
To
they
be
don't
able to
pay
show
naira.
it.
Because your naira, the brutal fact of life is because we don't contribute much value to the world, as you pass Seme or Jibia, not many people pass through Ikon. As you pass those places and extend outside Nigeria, your naira becomes paper.
Yeah.
So everybody that pays for stuff outside of Nigeria pays for it in USD or in some other currency. English Premier League rights are priced in USD, and they raise it every year because more and more people, the English Premiership, the English football is the best marketed thing, or one of the best marketed things on planet Earth. So they raise the prices every year. If you are living in the UK, to watch single match on, you could be paying as much as £12. £12 right now is about 24,000 naira. 24,000 naira just to watch one match.
One game.
How many Nigerians can afford it? So these cable companies are actually doing us a favor. The telecom companies that have kept their prices artificially low for years have been doing us a favor. But it has reached the point where they are beginning to drown. They can no longer take it. And as a matter of fact, one of the telecoms companies has more or less, in terms of quality of service, and I know you will vex, 9 Mobile, because I've been trying to I've been trying to port.
No.
Their service.
Stop it.
Okay, let me be mature.
Because in all honesty, it's not even just anyone. We've talked about it off air, and I think almost across board, Nigerians have been complaining about the quality of service from many of the telecom providers.
Because they've had to. So in many places, they can no longer supply diesel to their base stations. So what you now have is a case of where maybe a cluster of 5. I spoke to a friend of mine who works in the sector some weeks ago, and he said it's now that basically it's about 1 in 5. Wow. So where you had a cluster of 5 base stations before, it's only one of them that is now working full time. So that explains why service has become weak. So, but it's an investment thing. They don't have money to invest.
We have 2 minutes, Shatak. I can go ahead. Leave my own question.
I was saying that, at the end of the day, the buck stops at the president's table.
Absolutely.
When it comes to policies that directly or indirectly affect the lives of Nigerians. Whether it's short or long term, Nigerians are tired of being gagged. Nigerians just want to breathe. Whether it's expenses, whether it's what, they say things get...
We're not breathing. When he was a candidate, did he not say, let's Nigeria, let's breathe?
We're not breathing.
He also said that statistics.
So listen, we always, when things get, it's darkest before dawn, things get tougher because...
Light at the end of the tunnel.
Light at the end of the... There's so many things we use to make ourselves feel good. But question is, what additional measures what additional measures do we need to curb inflation and improve living conditions?
Aside to your presidency.
Yeah.
I love it.
Don't bite.
Let's put that one aside.
Let's stay with me.
We have like a minute now.
Yeah.
So I think that the most important thing that we need to do is security. It's people cannot invest in an atmosphere of insecurity. I like to think, I know I have contributed to ransom payments for people. I like to think that all of us around this table, one way or the other, have contributed to ransom payments for people that we know. You can't invest in an atmosphere of insecurity, so that's the first thing that needs to be sorted. Secondly, infrastructure.
Yeah, you said it earlier.
Yeah, we need to sort out our infrastructure. It is critical. Thirdly, we need to find that USP. We cannot compete with China on manufacturing, so forget it. But we need to find that thing that we can sell to the world. And here it is. Let me give, see, normally I invoice for this, but let me just give it for free as a favor to Tony. We are in a geographical region that we're in the same time zone with Europe, and we're 6 hours ahead of New York, and we speak English. Why can't we dominate the call center space?
Like India did in the 90s.
And do you know how many people we can shove into call centers?
And I think our English is probably better than India. Have you called it?
Not probably better.
Our English is probably
better.
Arrogance.
It is. I've had an encounter.
Well, encounters.
Have you heard Rishi Sunak speak?
No, that's now you are taking. It's just one. What they call it?
Or Pretty Patel?
Yes.
Oswela Brabham.
It's all right. But have you heard
Those
me
are
bad
just
knock?
those are sprinkles.
See, we're going into something else.
Sorry.
And the blame
Cheta, you will not know.
Cheta, you will not take us there. We have said that Kemi Badnock is off the table now.
Yes.
We're wrapping it up. Cheta, it's always a pleasure having you. And the way the conversation just moves from so many different aspects, it tells you that we're still a very dynamic country, but our problems are also as dynamic as we are. But at the end of the day, it does not require rocket science, and it does not require God coming down from heaven to solve our problems. One thing is clear, Nigerians are feeling the weight of the country's economic crisis. While inflation has reduced from a month-to-month basis, but based on, as he said, a statistical equation, Nigerians want to feel the real impact, and we hope that we feel that impact very soon. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a pleasant day.